Karthik's back. Karthik's back.
Karthik's back.
Karthik's back.
Karthik's back.
Karthik's back.
Karthik's back.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of First Canada Live. It's 2021, it's Infinite Recharge Part 2, all sorts of good stuff happening, and this is going to be a great show. I'm your host, Karthik, and we're here for another, a lot of fun. This is a show, for those of you who have not watched before, this is a show where we get together to talk about themes, personalities from the FIRST community, talk for robot stories, community initiatives, all sorts of good stuff. Everything good about the FIRST community in Canada, that's what we talk about here. And speaking of good in the community, we have a member of the FIRST Canada Youth Council here today as my co-host. Welcome Ishan from FIRST Team 2706 Merged Robotics. Ishan B, because we got two Ishans tonight. It's going to be interesting. Hey Ishan.
Hey Karthik, how's it going?
Good, man. How about you? How's your season going? How's everything going with Merged Robotics?
Really exciting. We're doing a lot of planning online. I'm just really excited for this whole season, even if it's online. I think we're still participating a lot.
Yeah, there's so much stuff going on. There's a lot of cool challenges. We're going to talk about some specific stuff today, but we got a really fun show today. So let's not waste any time. The Kahoot challenge is back. So this is a first trivia we do where everyone plays, but we got two people on the show playing off for the title. Brennan Bibic, who's the two-time Kahoot champion, will be facing off against Parth Suthar. So that's going to be exciting. Later on in the show, at around 7:45-ish, I'm going to be doing a deep dive into how to design a competitive robotics game, which is probably going to be pretty useful if you're taking part in the 2021 Game Design Challenge. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And at the top, we've got Patricia and Ishan from Mcmaster University, Ishan V, that's right, from Mcmaster University here to tell us all about their school and, what they have to offer for FIRST students. So it's going to be super, super great. Throughout the show, if you've got questions for any of our guests, any of the hosts, drop them in the chat. We will try our best to answer them live and on the air. And remember, we're here to celebrate some fun and have celebrate some excellence and have some fun with our community on the show. So let's keep things positive and professional as we go through, as we do in any sort of first event. But to get us started today, Ishan B is going to lead us through the Youth Council Wellness Moment. Take it away, Ishan.
Yeah, for sure. So today's Youth Council Wellness Moment, which I chose, was actually just going outside for walks and seeing nature. So I actually go on small walks with my family, just, through the neighborhood. I think it's really nice because it helps you, especially when people are isolated during lockdown, and it lets you have some fresh air while also having better mental health. And it just lets you stay calm overall and relax. One thing you have to watch out for is obviously COVID-19 restrictions, but one thing that counteracts that also is that you may feel isolated while always being online. So make sure you go on like nice safe walks just in nature and kind of feel relaxed. One more thing to add on to that is for post-COVID wellness. So this isn't related to COVID, but maybe before or after the lockdowns are over. I actually like traveling a lot. So one of my hobbies is actually just traveling to different adventurous places. And one thing I actually have that's very unique is some people may also have this, but this one thing I'm very well known for is my keychain collection, which is quite massive. Yeah.
When you said you were going to be showing off keychains, I was thinking a couple of things. That's you look like you're one of those people in the center of Paris, right in front of the Eiffel Tower, like selling all, they open up the bag and they're selling all this stuff, man. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I actually have a bunch of different keychains, like for example, the Taj Mahal or Paris and a bunch of different places. And each of them represents a different unique place I've been to. So it really reminds me about adventure and traveling.
Yeah, and it fits perfectly in your pocket, right?
Yeah, totally.
Hey,
Yeah, I actually use it for my real keys.
But before we move on to the news updates, Ishan, one other piece of wellness, you have a little bit of a video, some wellness stuff that you did last summer, correct?
Yes, exactly. So actually, in July 2020, I went skydiving, which is a really, really fun experience.
All right, we got to check this video. We got to check this out. Let's take a look. So as this goes, just a reminder, everyone, the minimum age to go skydiving is 16 years old. And if you're going to do this, you have to follow every single safety guideline possible. That being said, this is awesome. So where's the camera at this point? Is that on another jumper?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, another person jumped as well.
What a rush.
Yeah, it was really thrilling for sure.
Is that the Kingston, Ottawa area below, or?
Yeah. It was actually in Gatineau, so very, very close by to Ottawa.
Very cool. Ishan, thank you for sharing your wellness moment. And just a reminder to all of our audiences, everyone, please do your best to take care of yourself. There's so much going on in the world. And, sometimes we're feeling isolated. Sometimes we're feeling stressed because of school, because of work. And it's important that we take care of ourselves this time. And also, check on each other, check on your friends, make sure everyone's doing all good. Okay, now it's time to get into the news. So let's take a look at what we have. And there's a lot going on in the FRC community right now. Today's news updates are mainly focused on FRC, but just a reminder, registration is still open for this FRC season. So if you've heard about these challenges with your team and you're like the game design challenge, well, that's cool, innovation challenge, you want to get involved, it is not too late to register. Contact First Senior Mentor Paul Keenan or FRC Director for Canada, John Hobbins, and they will help you out and they will hook you up. Also, if you need some help in general with your season, how about you check out the Ontario First Team Support Slack? You can find it at onfirstteamsupport.slack.com. And invites have been sent out in the email blast to all the lead mentors, so you can get the invite from there. Join up in the Slack, and there's so many people in there who can help you out. So that's super cool. Also coming up soon, we have a bunch of scholarship deadlines. We're going to be talking a little bit about scholarships with our friends from Mcmaster later on, but over the next few weeks, the Women in STEM Scholarship, presented by First Canada, has a deadline on January 31st, and the Build a Dream Skilled Trade Scholarship, February 15th. So if you want to apply for those, head over to www.firstroboticscanada.org/scholarships to get all the details. And you know what they say, apply, apply, apply. Ishan, have you been applying for scholarships so far?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And one thing important to note is actually you can maybe even reuse essays for other different applications if you want. And that allows you to apply to many different places while not spending as much effort on each and every application.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially like the essays that you're doing for your supplementary applications with the universities. That's a really,
Hmm.
really good idea. Another reminder that we want to get teams, this season's different. We know, things aren't happening the same way, but some things that are happening the same way are Dean's List and Woody Flowers, at least the submissions. So mentors, we want all of you to nominate 2 students from your team for the Dean's List Award. It's such a huge service for them. It can be a really meaningful life opportunity. And to the students, make sure you're nominating 1 mentor per team for the Woody Flowers Finalist Award. That is, I know I was fortunate enough to earn that award back in 2005, and it was a life changer for me. So make sure you nominate your mentors. It's a really, really big deal. And deadlines for that are coming up soon, actually, February 18th, I believe. So get those in. And if you want to submit these awards, you're going to have students on a team roster. So make sure you get all your mentors and students on your team rosters. That is still required this year, even though we are not having in-person events. Please get registered on your team rosters. If you need help with that, Paul Keenan, Swaggy P, for Senior Mentor, will help you out. He is the master. He's the master of swag, obviously, but he's also the master of the team roster. So be a big help right there. And one other piece of news today, Team 118, the Everybot folks, they updated their materials for 2021. And so they're not saying build a new robot or anything like that, but they did take videos of all of the Everybot doing all the drivers challenges and all the different courses. So you really, really want to check those out because it gives you an idea. Like some of them they were finishing in just like a handful of seconds, which was like really impressive. So check out those videos. If you head to www.118everybot.org, there's links to the updated resources for 2021. And just the Everybot is such, like, in my opinion, it's the best resource that exists in all of FRC. And it's a really, really cool thing for new teams, for veteran teams, anyone who's looking to mentor teams. It's all sorts of good stuff. So be sure to check that one out. But that's it for the news. I think it's time to get started with the rest of the show. But before we do that, let's take a look at this video from our next guest, Mcmaster University.
So today, right now at Mcmaster, we're doing robotics for First Canada, and we're Team 6865. We're competing around with our robot, and during that, we are going through qualifications with other teams as an alliance, and then hopefully near the end of our competitions, we'll be picked in a team, and we'll be able to do elimination matches and keep going with that.
My experience started when I was in grade 9. So one of my friends actually pushed me to join the team, and the first thing I saw when I walked in was how accepting people were. And I was shown what it meant to go through engineering processes and to do CAD and wiring and how to work on your team as a business, how to present. So I was just hooked from the start, and I had to go by the whole principle you get out of it, which you put into it. And now being first alum, I hope to go back and mentor while I'm in university.
The best thing about being a back-end student is probably the people. The school is great, of course, but the people here are wonderful, and everyone I've met in engineering has been a totally great person.
All right, and we're back, and no better way to go from that video to hearing from the experts themselves. So I'd like to welcome our two guests for our first segment. First, we have Patricia Kusulas, who is the Recruiting and Promotions Coordinator for Mcmaster Engineering. She's passionate about working in a collaborative environment and about everything to do with Mcmaster Engineering. And while Mac might be her priority, you could also find her hanging out with her cat, Hazel, and her dog, Cookie. Are Cookie and Hazel around for the show tonight, Patricia?
Hazel's around the corner, and Cookie's with actually my parents. So who knows? Maybe we'll get some cat affection tonight.
It has been a trend on this show that pets just kind of make surprise appearances. I think they typically run the house, and they definitely run the Zoom calls. So hopefully we'll see what's there. But we also have from Mcmaster University, Ishan Vermani, who is a First Canada alum from Team 6351, Rundle College, based in Calgary, where he's an alumni mentor. He's been involved with pretty much everything on that team since the beginning, and now he's continuing to promote STEM in his local communities. And of course, he is studying in his second year of mechatronics and biomedical engineering at McMaster University. So welcome, Ishan V.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to be here.
Hey, Ishan, I know you came straight from a lab today, so thank you for rushing in. And how did the lab go today?
It went pretty well, just covering up on some key concepts. The first week or two of school, so just still settling into the rhythm,
Yeah, absolutely. And so, before I get started here, I just want to say, first of all, thank you to McMaster University, because McMaster has been such a great supporter of First Robotics Canada over the past 4 or 5 years now, since the first district event that we had at the school in 2017, which I was there for, which was completely amazing. I know so many First students who've been affected by not just McMaster University, but the support in terms of the scholarships. How many students have had support, that's life-changing support from these scholarships? So thank you so much, McMaster, and thank you for being here. But Patricia, what I want to ask you is, what can you, I'm sure there's everything you can share with us. Tell us about McMaster Engineering.
That is the perfect question to start us off. And I wish we had all the time today to tell you about all the amazing parts of McMaster Engineering. I am so happy to be joined by Ishan, because I think hopefully both of our experiences will be able to inspire our audience today. But in terms of some of the, I wouldn't say the best parts, but the most important pieces to know if you're maybe a current prospective student debating between some university options, either this upcoming year or in the future, is a bit more about our faculty. So the couple things to share is that there are 4 programs that actually make up the Faculty of Engineering at McMaster. There's Engineering 1, there's the iBiomed program, which is the Integrated Biomedical Engineering and Health Sciences program. Ishan is actually part of that program, so he'll share more about that. We've got Computer Science and the Bachelor of Technology. So there really is a program for everybody. Both the Engineering 1 program and iBiomed have the common first year, which really allow for students to not have to stress about which discipline is going to be theirs for the rest of their undergrad, but instead kind of get a sense of various engineering disciplines throughout their first year. We've got a co-op program, and the best part is that it's flexible and customizable any way that a student wants to. They can take 4-month placements or do something all the way up to a 16-month placement as well, with a total of up to 28 months by the time a student graduates. So it's pretty awesome that that's an option for our students. But of course, we do have an exception. If anybody here is interested in the Bachelor of Technology, that program does actually have a mandatory 12 months of co-op. So I'm sharing a bit about our programs, sharing about co-ops. We're going to get into some scholarship details in a second, but the last piece on that question to share with the group today is that our motto at MacEng is degree plus experience. So as much as you're here, to get your undergraduate degree at the end of the day, you're also here to immerse yourself in opportunities. And who better than like the first community to live this and breathe this? Ishan is definitely a living and breathing soul of that testament. But we really encourage our students to get involved through co-op, through curriculars, through personal projects, innovation, startups, whatever it is. That experience piece really matters to us. So I'll leave it at that, and excited that some folks here are excited to chat more about MacEng with us.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. To follow up, Ishan, I wanted to ask you a question. What made you choose McMaster Engineering and the specific program that you're doing?
So in high school, I actually wasn't even considering engineering at all. But after my last 2 years at First in grade 11 and grade 12, I really liked the role I had on the team, and the stuff I was working on really spoke to me. So that's when I really started to pursue engineering programs. But I also really liked the other subjects I was learning, particularly high school biology. And particularly growing up in Alberta, Ontario universities weren't as much on my radar as it might be for someone in Ontario. But the iBiomed program, which Patricia mentioned earlier, is what really spoke to me because it had a combination of both that health science biology aspect. So for example, the lab I just came from earlier was actually an anatomy lab, which covers that biological interest from my education. And then I still get the full-on engineering experience. And that general first year also let me decide if I really wanted to go one way or the other by the end of first year. So I think the overall program was just too good to be true. So I decided to go for it, and here I am.
That makes a lot of sense. The general first year, I think, is something that a lot of students appreciate because, high school is short. It goes by in a blur, and there's so many options now. There's so many cool things you can do, especially as a first student. You get exposed to all these great things, and you're still not sure what you want to do. So having that general first year, which really lets you navigate your choices, is a really cool thing. And so, Ishan, you talked about how First impacted you. And so a question for both you and Patricia, but McMaster and First have such a great partnership. And so what is, how did McMaster celebrate the First community and the First students?
I can start this off, and then Ishan can share more about his experiences as a past scholarship winner. So we've heard this word today quite often already, but MacEng, one of the biggest ways that we support First students is through our scholarship program. And just to give a quick rundown of how the program works is that students in First or non-First are eligible to apply to our Faculty of Engineering scholarships if they are a student applying to one of our 4 programs. You're going to do one application. It's super simple and indicate that you are involved in First. One of your reference letters will have to support that. And we actually give out 10 scholarships that are equivalent to $15,000. That's huge to students with an immense involvement with the First community. So that is a big way, but I'll pass it on to Ishan to share some of his experiences transitioning into the university environment through his experiences with First.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. So a First scholarship isn't necessarily the only thing that is eligible for First students. I was given this Research Experience Award, which essentially subsidizes a research term for myself after first year. So I worked under a faculty professor for the entirety of my first year, online this summer, unfortunately, but it was still really cool to work in a research setting and actually apply what I learned in First. I was able to work completely in Python, but using all that programming knowledge I picked up through First. And so having that background really makes you an appealing target for professors when they want to pick you up. It's already an impressive stat on your resume. And I believe that having that background and being able to work through adversity and being able to work through gaining new technical knowledge is a real asset when it comes to your very first placement, either in the research position or on the job. So the scholarship program, especially that research scholarship, is a really good reward from the McMaster engineering side to help students kind of kickstart their university experience.
And yeah, just to jump back to that, Ishan, you said it perfectly. We do celebrate scholarships through the First involvement, but our total pool of scholarships is actually up to $1 million. And on top of that is that $6,000 research award. So it is a win-win to be celebrated directly with that financial support in your first year, especially, but also knowing that you have a co-op position lined up the summer after your first year. And Ishan just lived that experience as he was sharing with us. So two really big perks from that end for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I could immediately see how the technical skills you learn at first, such as programming, a CAD, and so on, can definitely be useful in research and other positions. And to follow up on this, Ishana, I wanted to ask you, how has your involvement in FIRST throughout high school also impacted other experiences in university? Have there been other places also in addition to research where FIRST has also helped you, your experiences in FIRST?
Yeah, so to start off, it helped me pick my current stream of mechatronics, which for those of you unfamiliar with it is basically a robotics centered stream. It's a combination of mechanical, electrical, computer, and software. So all of it all in one. And I really like that rush that I got from FIRST. So including building hands-on, getting to work on everything. I was on a smaller team, so I had broad exposure to all aspects. So involved in the design, the electrical, and the programming. And being able to explore all that really influenced me to get into robotic design, which is why I'm in the current mechatronics stream. Having that background not only applies to job positions, but you can also use it to get into clubs. So Mac has a ton of clubs that can really springboard off your first experience and help you take it to that next level into real world applications. So there's a solar car team where you design a car completely powered by solar panels. There's a Mars rover team that's actually very similar to FIRST. They have an annual competition every year. And fun fact, they even use Victor SPXs. So I saw that and realized that, oh, this is a perfect extension of what we learned in FIRST. And you already know how to wire one up. And if you have the right libraries, you can get that thing running in no time. There's a ton of student initiatives that you really like your involvement, your incentive to work in a team. Such as the Mac-Eng Musical or engineering societies, you can really capitalize on that. Of course, we also have tons of opportunities to volunteer as a FIRST alum. My background is actually the 2017 Mcmaster district event. This is the Mcmaster gym. And this year I was gonna volunteer as a referee at the Infinite Recharge event before that was unfortunately canceled. But essentially having a background in FIRST with both technical experience as well as having that familiarity with time management is a really strong asset in your post-secondary experience. And it really supplements your classroom education, especially in your first 2 years.
Well, Ishan, definitely, we're going to get you back as a ref at some point. So don't worry about that. There will be events at some point, and we always need volunteers and we need good referees. So thank you for, volunteering and being that way. You talked about some of the clubs that are out there. First of all, did you say the Mac-Eng Musical?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so what's their current performance? What's the last performance they did? I'm a huge musical junkie, so.
I personally can't comment on that.
Patricia,
I think it was a while ago.
I could actually, I'm a huge fan of them and recommend, and that's the best part, right? Ishan sharing some of the technical teams, and I assume that, many of our FIRST students in the audience are like, they can't wait to kind of continue that momentum and get, involved in some of those hands-on experiences, but there's, social justice groups to get involved in, or there's creative groups. The musical also got canceled last year, but they were doing a Bachelorette spinoff, and that's what they typically do, and it was called The Endlorette. This year they're making a movie, so for those who are excited and interested, I'm curious, that will be hopefully posted in the upcoming months, but that really speaks to the Mac-Eng community that you could be in a computer engineering program and be the star lead of the musical, that your interest in arts, your interest in robots, your interest in, social justice, leadership, in a cultural group, those experiences are so valid, and there's something for you. If there isn't, you could start your own initiative. There's probably not enough left to think about because they're all taken, but absolutely the clubs and teams culture at Mcmaster is huge. And we really noticed that our FIRST students, scholarship winners or not, really end up continuing the idea of getting involved in the community, externally in Hamilton or internally with the various clubs and teams we offer.
That's fabulous that there's so many of those options like that, man. I just kind of want to go audition for a musical right now.
Please do. I'm sure they'll be open.
Yeah, I'm in for sure. But so Ishan, you've talked about some of the clubs in there, but can you talk a little bit more about the experiential opportunities you've had through your classes and also outside the classroom?
I would love to. I actually took over the Mcmaster Engineering Instagram today to talk about the clubs or the coursework earlier today. But I can definitely expand on that. So there's two first-year courses. There's Engineer 1P13, and this is for all the first-year engineers who apply. And then there's the 1P10 program, which is for the iBiomed students. So that's the one I'm more familiar with. But in the 1P13 stream, students can expect to be building and designing a windmill, making a robot that sorts recycling, and solving a real-world problem for someone from the local Hamilton community. For myself, in my first year, we had to make a wearable device using a sensor and a Raspberry Pi, and we had to fully wire it up on a breadboard and fully program it with all the proper libraries and stuff. So other projects also involve designing a custom hip implant, specifically given a set of diseases and a case study presented to you. You had to design something that met the criteria. And we also created a custom arthritis-friendly keyboard for our final design project, and that was for an actual Mcmaster student as well. So unfortunately, we couldn't make the final thing because that was pushed online, but it was a really cool way to apply what you learned through the year to a real situation and have that judged by that person.
I have to say that this sounds a lot like the innovation challenge that our students are learning. That it's new for the first robotics competition this year, but everyone out there, pay attention. The stuff that you do with the innovation challenge is going to be the stuff that you're going to be doing if you go to a school like Mcmaster, which is really cool. That your fun extracurricular in high school is going to become your curricular in university. That's like a neat extension of everything. But please go on, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it really well. I mean, FLL is something that people do in their own initiative. And these courses are just a really good way for you to express your passion for everything you've done in first. Just now, it's actually for credits. So it's a really awesome course for anyone who has this first background. And I think anyone currently on a high school first team will really enjoy the experience in both of these undergrad courses.
Right. We are running out of time here because we got a jam-packed show, but I do want to get to this last question because I think it's so important, because I think we all need to spend time self-evaluating. And I think this is something I look back on a lot. But what is one piece of advice that you would give to your own high school self and to our first audience members today? And so I want to start with Patricia.
Perfect. So it's been a couple of years, but what would I share with my high school self? I mean, shamelessly plugging, definitely the scholarships piece. That's something I didn't even really feel like I had time to explore, but Mcmaster Engineering specifically, and I'm sure other universities as well, offer amazing scholarships to celebrate everybody's involvement. So definitely doing more of that. But really coming in with an open mind to the university environment. I think some students come in knowing that they want to do this and to lead to this career outcome. But something that I've learned, especially working in the recruitment team and working with both prospective students and current students, is that there are so many opportunities that exist and at the university level, in the classroom, outside the classroom, through internships and co-op placements, that your mind is going to change. And I think, and that's very much okay. So, and what I love about Mcmaster the best, from my own experiences, is that we create those opportunities, right? Through the common first year, the flexible co-op, the various clubs and teams, and the list goes on and on. So that openness is something that I'd really like to pass on to future students listening today. But again, I hope everybody definitely considers applying to our engineering scholarships. It's just one application.
Ishan V.
Yeah, my advice really stems from Patricia's, but the idea is you're the only one that controls what you can get out of your experience. Nothing will come to you. You have to go seek out what you want to get from your university experience and life in general. And I think a lot of the viewers are in first. So you made that step to go outside just plain coursework and actually work on this club, on this extracurricular by your own initiative. And I really think taking that attitude beyond is a really valuable asset. I think I applied for this engineering ambassador position with a few hours left for the deadline, but by actually actively taking that step to do that, I ended up on this fantastic show. So don't sit back and let something come to you. Make the most out of what you want, and you're the one that can control what you get out of that.
That's great advice in general. Forget about your university applications, but this whole process as you go through this, for all our students who are watching, university is a time where you really can define who you are as opposed to being defined by others. So take advantage of these opportunities, explore, do new things. There's more to life out there than what you already know, and there's so much, so you just gotta discover it all. Before we go, Patricia, how can people find out more information about Mcmaster University?
I was just going to share, we're going to hang around on the Twitch chat just to answer any questions and share some awesome resources. Our main contact is our email, which is thinkeng@mcmaster.ca. THINKENG at mcmaster.ca. But Ishan and I would love to continue this conversation. Ishan's the real deal. He's coming in with that first background and thriving in the university setting. So we're thankful we had this opportunity to connect today, but we will see you on the Twitch chat to answer any questions.
Right. And at some point in the future, we'll be seeing both of you in person at a first event. Ishan, are you going to be refereeing? Patricia, I'm assuming you're going to be manning the booth or running the show or doing something awesome.
Exactly. We welcome everybody to our campus as soon as we can.
I can't wait to get back there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to McMaster University for everything you do for First Canada and for all our students. It's truly appreciated. Before we get to our next segment, let's take a look at a video from our sponsor.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Synnex Canada is a leading provider of the latest and greatest technology products and solutions to more than 8,000 resellers throughout Canada. Headquartered in Fremont, California, Synnex operates its technology business in the United States, Canada, Japan, and Mexico, and has a presence in over 25 countries throughout the world. Synnex also provides solutions, customer care, and business services for many of the world's leading-edge businesses through subsidiaries, Hive Solutions, and Concentrix. Synnex has over 40,000 of the world's best and brightest minds collaborating on exciting and innovative projects. Synnex may be a big player, but our business is still about people. People that understand how to put technology to work to make a difference in business and in their day-to-day lives. Synnex employees make a visible impact and are recognized and rewarded for their contributions. Synnex, putting people first.
Hey, we're back. Thank you, Synnex. That was really cool hearing from McMaster University, especially from an alum like Ishan. He's got so many great stories. So thank you to Ishan and Patricia. But Ishan B, you know what time it is, right? You got to turn your mic. There we go.
Yeah, it's time for the Kahoot.
That's right. It's the Kahoot challenge time. So let us bring on first our challenger. He's a First Canada alum, mentor for Team 188, Woburn Robotics, the First Canada lead CSA, straight out of Malvern, bro. What up, Parth Suthar?
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Karthik. Yep, straight out of Scarborough, straight out of Malvern. Let's go.
Yeah. So you got, you're a big Raptors fan, as you know. Raptors have won 3 in a row. Are you going to keep that energy tonight? Are you gonna keep
that's where I'm at. Yeah, I need that Chris Boucher energy in me right now.
That's right. Bloc Québécois right there. But hey, the champion's here, rocking yellow like the NBA champion, the Los Angeles Lakers. Two-time champion, Brennan Bibic, First Canada alum, lead mentor for Team 4476, the Waffles, and a First Canada game announcer. Hey, Brennan.
Hello.
How are you doing, buddy?
Been good. I'm glad that the Raptors are kind of back on track. I also been following them.
It's been a nice change, 3 in a row, but everything's kind of like rounding into form right now. It's like I'm feeling pretty good. Spicy Pete, like even last game, like Siakam struggled in the first half, and then the second half, it's like, whoa, he's here. So things are going good, and Alex Len just got cut, but hey, maybe we'll sign Bruno back. That's what I'm saying.
Let's
bring
see.
back Bruno Caboclo, man. Okay, enough basketball chit chat. We can do that all day long. But here we are for the Kahoot challenge. So, for those of you who have never watched before, this is how we do it. We put up a Kahoot. It's first trivia. Topics are all over the place. Brennan and Parth are competing directly for the First Canada Live Kahoot Championship. However, everyone in the audience is playing along as well for prizes, and the prizes are pretty good. So first place today is going to receive a First Canada fanny pack. Second place, a First Canada Moleskin notebook. Those notebooks were recommended by Lisa Ramraj. She was the one who got paid First Canada to get those. And third place is the First Canada toque. So it's all sorts of good stuff. So make sure you take a look at that, and let's join into the game right now. So let's get it started. There is the pin, kahoot.it to play, and the pin is 249-5606. Brennan and Suthar, make sure you get in there, of course. Ishan, have you seen the questions yet? Okay, you can unmute Ishan.
Yeah, sorry. No, I actually have not, so I'm gonna be here with everyone else.
Play along right here, buddy. So Suthar, Parth Suthar,
Yes.
he doesn't mess. This man doesn't mess around. This is a pure Scarborough man. He texted me today. He's like, "Hey, I was going through the old video on demands, looking at the old questions, and where did you find the answer to this one question about frisbee scoring in 2013?" Mans is taking this seriously, Brennan.
Oh no.
He is ready to go. So.
Hey, he's a two-time champ. I had to prepare.
True.
That's right. That's right. Hey, the Warriors were two-time defending champions when the Raptors took them down. That's right.
That is true.
So
That is true.
Let's bring that Kawhi energy.
Yeah, that's due.
I'm gonna let some more people join. Everyone in chat, feel free to come on in. We've got like 100 viewers right now, so if there's more, lots more people can join in. I think we can take up to 2,000 people.
Jeez.
I don't think we're gonna get to that number. You never know.
A lot of animals there.
Yeah, that's right. When you get to 2,000, like, don't you run out of animals at some point? Are we gonna have to rely on like the Triassic era for like some of the weird creatures that existed back then?
Possibly.
Over the summer, I was reading, over Christmas break, I was reading about this like one animal from the Triassic area, and it had like a spike at the back of its tail. Like, wow. That's just throwing things out there.
That's true.
All right, people coming in here. Yo, Suthar, you got some support in the chat from Rishi_1310.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your boy Rishi's there support. Okay, I think we can get this one started, Aiden. So let's go into our first question. And so guess what? I figured almost all the questions are themed around infinite recharge. We're focused on the very near past. So hope you are ready. Question number 1. Which team had the highest OPR/calculated contribution in Ontario in the 2020 Infinite Recharge season? And this is all according to the Caleb Sykes database. I know there's a few calculations for OPR out there, but Caleb Sykes is the man. So we're going with his. Is it Team 188, Team 1114, Team 2200, or Team 3683? And obviously this is for events that were played. There was, only 3. So this really isn't that hard of a question. I gave you guys a softball to start things out.
If you think this is a soft one, oh no.
Come on, any good scouter strategist has the Sykes database open every weekend, and you're sorting, you're filtering, checking what's going on in your area. You used to do that with the old 1114 database, but Caleb Sykes has taken that mantle now.
Yeah, his is very advanced and nice to use. We definitely use it as well.
Yeah, it's the best source. There's so many, all the component OPR. Like, why do I have to open up R or MATLAB to do it? It's Team 188 with the highest OPR right there. So very impressive. Suthar, did you get the right answer?
Sadly, I did not. So sorry.
Classic 188.
Oh my God.
Classic. What did you put?
2200.
Oh man, your alliance partner. At least you have faith in your alliance partner. Brennan, who did you have?
I had 188.
Brennan Bibic with the correct answer. All right, let's take a look here. Brennan, what animal are you?
Jolly lemur.
All right, let's see. You are Arctic rabbit in first place, but Jolly lemur, you're in third place overall. So okay, and Suthar, we know you have 0 points because you didn't even get your own team.
That's true.
Okay. All right. Let's do the next question here. Which alliance had the most power cell points scored in a match in Ontario in the 2020 Infinite Recharge season? So this is alliance power cell points. 188, 2200, 8089, 865, 1325, 6859, 3683, 1114, 2405, or 5024, 4519, 5032. Personally, I would wager on the alliance of droids that we're seeing right there. BB-8, R2, and C-3PO. That's a solid alliance. R2 definitely the alliance captain. C-3PO is the third pick. He's the one that's like, what are you doing, man? Just sit in the corner and play defense. Just stop talking. You have your answers locked in, folks?
Yep.
Okay. Gonna give everyone else some time in the audience.
This one's tricky.
It is tricky.
Yeah.
You got some information from the last question. We'll see how you factor that in. 3683, 1114, and 2405 did this in the semifinals at the Humber event. Most people picked the 188 which would be a good one, but like in the elims at Humber, 3683 and 1114 took it to a new level, a level that 1114 hadn't seen at all. Like they were like load management Kawhi during qualifications. They missed a match. They, running into themselves, but in the elims, they put it all together. So let's see where we are. Brennan, you get the answer?
No.
Suthar?
Thank God. I did not either. No.
Oh boy.
I wagered on.
You wagered on yourself this time?
Yeah,
now
yeah,
you bet on yourself.
No,
you can't get the Fred
I bet on
VanVleet one off, man. Adorable hair in first place. Congratulations. Oh, the chirps are coming from chat from Greedy 3683. 0 for 2, classic Suthar.
Oh my God.
That's for neat, by the way. Okay, let's go to the next question, which ties in directly to the last one. What was the most power cell points scored in a match in Ontario in the 2020 Infinite Recharge season? So from the match that we just talked about, 87, 108, 128, 153. Power cell points. Remember, points are doubled in the autonomous period. That's a hint. Gave you some big ranges right here. Ishan B, how are you doing, by the way? What place are you in?
I think I'm like 18th place, but I
18th
got
place?
one right so far, yeah.
Not bad. That's one more than Suthar.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Bro, we need a comeback here. You're
Yeah, we really do. Really do.
We might send you to Brampton with Parth.
Oh no, no, not that. I'll just go to Ashra. It's it's kind of like home. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Parth Suthar, an alum of OnTech U, Ontario Tech University.
That is correct.
128 points. So most people didn't get that one right. 153 is actually the world record that was put up by 118 and 148 down in Texas. So it's 128. It was just an amazing match. Team Dave was just hitting those cycles like bang, bang, bang. 188 and 2200 and 8089 did a 126 at Durham. Okay, let's see. Brennan, you get that one?
No.
Suthar?
No.
Oh, Suthar.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Brennan's going easy on me.
Brennan's going easy on everyone.
Yeah,
He's only got one.
Majestic
Puffin. You're
not to brag, but I got 2.
Oh yeah, Ishan B.
There you go. There you
repping
go.
the youth council.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh man, the cat is really chirping you. Our boys, Suthar, are having good. John Hobbins says he has them all right, but he's not entered.
Of course.
All right. Okay.
Of course.
Let's go. Next question. We're taking this global this time. Which team had the highest OPR/calculated contribution in the world for the 2020 Infinite Recharge season, according to the Sykes database? Is it Team 148, Team 188, who we've heard of already today, Team 973, the Greybots, or Team 1690, Orbit Robotics from Israel? So we got Texas, Ontario, California, and Israel as our options here. Making you think. We saw 1690 play. I think that was an event that was midweek, so everyone got to see that event with their amazing Spindexer, which influenced a lot of designs. 148 and 118 put on a show down in Texas, 973 in California, and 188, man, at Durham. It was pretty impressive. 973 is the answer. Everyone was thinking 148. Suthar, did you get this one?
No, I went with the public on this one. I'm on 148.
Brennan?
Nope.
Oh boy.
God.
Oh boy. Okay. Ishan B.
Yeah, I got it.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, let's go, Ishan.
He's showing us all up.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the results here. Majestic Puffin is still in first place. Yellow Rabbit.
I'm second, by the way.
Yellow Rabbit. All right.
You're a Yellow Rabbit. Nice.
Okay. Now, Suthar. This is about like self-respect at this point. We're just gonna be roasting you.
Yeah,
Hardcore,
that's true.
man.
That's true. Yep.
All right, let's go. Don't go down like your boy LeBron did, like 4 times in the finals. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like Michael Jordan never lost in the finals. Okay, Rank the following teams for most elite blue banners as per the Blue Alliance. Team 1360, Orbit Robotics. Oh, the look on Brennan's face. Team 781, King Karthik Knights. The Kinetic Knights. 3683, Team Dave. And 865, Warp 7. Remember, you need to hit submit after you've ranked these 4 in terms of blue banners.
These ones are always tough.
These are yeah. This is really tough.
Well, you know, you got a 1 in 24 chance if you guess. So
That's true. That's true.
I'm sorry. Well, Nips Bobby's even in the chat. Legendary human player from Team 2056. John Hobbit says he's already got the answer correct. But he's not
As per
playing.
usual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he should be in here instead of me, if anything.
All right, folks. Get your answers in. Brennan, are you locked in?
I am.
Suthar locked in?
Yes, I am.
Ishan B?
Yep.
Okay. In the chat, Suthar from Malhar_1. Ooh, come on, Suthar.
Yeah.
Praneet says you're trying to be the 24th robot unintentionally.
It's tough. It's tough. It's tough out here. Yeah.
All right, we're coming down to the end here. Time running out. Let's see what we have. Even Hobbins is roasting you now, Suthar. Team 781 had 10 blue banners. 3683 9, 865 6, and 1365. Brennan?
I got it right.
Brennan got it right. Double the points. Suthar?
Nice. I did not get it right. I missed the middle two up.
Oh, no. Ishan?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get it right either.
Okay, let's take a look at the final results here. Third place, Knowing Goat. Second place, Jolly Lemur. First place,
5 out of 5. Holy.
5 out of 5, Majestic Puffin. Congratulations to the top 3. Were any of you the top 3?
I was second.
You were second,
Yeah,
Brendan. You got
yeah.
the big comeback with the 2,000 points there at the
Yeah.
end. Hey, if you are in the top 3, take a screenshot. Even if you're like in the top 5, just in case someone doesn't send their stuff in, take a screenshot, send it to communications@firstroboticscanada.org along with your username to claim your prize. So, Brennan, you are the winner, and Suthar, this means you can nominate someone for next episode. Do you want to do the nomination now, or do you want to save it till later?
Yes, I have already talked to someone
Okay.
who has wanted to, or who has accepted the challenge, and that is someone that Brennan already knows, Tegan Poles from 45.
Oh boy, Tegan's coming on the show. This is gonna be legit. We think we're gonna do it in 2 weeks, but we might change things up because we might have something going on. But Brennan and Tegan, we will be in touch. I'm really pumped to see this because Tegan beat Brennan once. Just he was playing.
She came third in this one apparently too.
Yeah.
Wow. Tegan just
close.
racking up the swag. All right, Suthar, Brennan, thank you for being on the show. Thanks for being great sports. Suthar, better luck next time, man.
Yeah,
I hope the Raptors
thanks.
do better.
Yes.
But still, seriously, thanks for coming on the show and thanks for all you do as volunteers, folks. And we'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right, and now we're going to get started with our game design segment in just a minute. Where I turned my camera back on. I was still getting ready to present. I was looking at my notes and everything. Okay, folks, now, if we can bring my slides up, but it's time to learn how to design a competitive robotics game. And this is a presentation given by me. Let's hit the next slide. And so for some background, in my former life, I was the global competition manager and the chair of the VEX game design committees. In my life, I've designed or been the on a design team for over 21 large-scale competitive robotics games spanning VEX Robotics Competition, VEX IQ, FVC, FTC, played by over 600,000 students globally. This was by far the most fun part of my previous life. It was designing games is great. It's a good time. Here's a list of some of the games that I've worked on. Some people know them. Personally, very proud that games I worked on were very highly reviewed by the communities, that people seem to enjoy them, and there were minimal amounts of death threats. So that's a good thing. So
That's a lot of games, Karthik.
it is 21. So I do need to do some acknowledgements here. To design an amazing game, you need a diverse group of problem solvers with different skills and different viewpoints. And so I always had a great committee of people I work with. There's a lot of people. One person I really wanted to thank is Brian Culver, who was actually an intern at VEX with me when I was working there. He's an alum of Team 33, the Killer Bees. And a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today, Brian and I worked on together and refining this process to get it to be very finely tuned. So Brian is a rock star. I don't know if he's watching, but and then there was just so many other people, great people I've worked with. From Canada, Ian McKenzie and Tyler Holtzman, Amanda Morrison and Grant Cox, Paul Copioli are all game design superstars. So might be having it fall apart over there. I'll fix it later. But yeah. So thank you to all of them. It takes a village. And the other thing, when you're working with your teams this year, this can't be an independent project because you need a bunch of different ideas. And we're going to go over this in a lot of different ways. But some of the best ideas that came about through our game design process for people I can't even stand. So it's cool. You want to work with different people and you get to learn about people's strengths. And so it's very awesome. Next slide. So the first thing I want to talk about is I give a very famous presentation about strategic design, but game design is strategic design. So when you're designing a robot, you need to analyze the rules to determine what the most optimal tasks for you to perform. You're breaking the game down. But here we're doing the reverse process. So when you're designing a game, it's well, what are your criteria? What are your rules? Not what are the rules of the game you're going to be implementing, but what are the rules you have to work with? What are your constraints? And there could be a million different criteria to follow. This presentation goes over the criteria that I've found most valuable over the years. However, you can come up with your own criteria. This will give you a starting point. And we talk about a lot of the options. These criteria will absolutely conflict with each other because like strategic design, you're going to have to make trade-offs. So when you're designing a robot, you want to have the widest possible intake because you want to be able to pick up as many balls. But then you have a constraint of, your robot intake can only be so big because you want to have your hanging arms on the side. You have to make those trade-offs. With game design, you have to make trade-offs across your criteria too. And that is by far the hardest thing you will be doing. Next slide. So let's go through the criteria. Number one, the game needs to be exciting. But what does that mean? Excitement can mean a lot of different things to different people, and we need more details because just saying the game must be exciting, different people have different ideas of what that is. So let's talk about 3 different groups. The game needs to be exciting for those who are designing and building the robots. So the build season needs to be exciting. It needs to be exciting for those who are strategizing and playing the game. So the competition experience needs to be exciting. And it needs to be exciting for spectators. 3 very distinct groups. Each group requires specific attention, and pleasing one may annoy another. A great example would be Recycle Rush in 2015, which a lot of people are like, oh, that game, I can't stand that game. It was so boring. And they're looking at it from the spectator's perspective, that it wasn't necessarily fun to watch. But that game had an amazing build experience. We saw some of the most creative robots that year. 148's Batman and Robin, Makeshift's Roy G. Bibb, these crazy tethered robots, because the rules, since there was no defense in that game, the build experience had fewer design rules, so you could do crazy things. So it was a great design build experience. But since there was no defense, the spectator experience wasn't as great. And there wasn't that head-to-head competition. This is the trade-off. The first game design committee made a trade-off that year. I actually think it was fine, but others didn't agree. But that's game design. We'll be coming back to this slide a lot. That's just so key. Next criteria that I believe in is understandability. The game needs to be easy to understand and follow. In competitive robotics, we live in this paradigm where the game is only played for 1 year. And, I made this slide 3 days ago, but of course, Infinite Recharge is being played for 2 years. But, you get my point. So people need to be able, they don't have years and years to develop knowledge of these games. Like football, basketball, and cricket are incredibly hard to follow, but they're very culturally ingrained. And so people have been seeing these games since they were little kids. They might not even been paying attention, but it's like, oh, my mom's watching football, I'll watch football too. And you start picking things up. And so you learn along the way. On the other hand, the long jump is really easy to understand. Person jumps and you measure it, and whoever jumps the furthest wins. But a lot of people say it's not that exciting. You want the Olympics, the long jump, like the pinnacle of the long jump, they usually only show 6 jumps out of the 72 that take place in the finals because it's not that exciting. Soccer and the 100-meter dash are the gold standard in terms of understandability. It's like everyone knows, what's going on in those games, and you don't have to have seen them before. You figure it out really easily. Some people thrive on complexity, most don't. So you need to understand your target market, which we're going to talk about a bit. Like you don't want to overcomplicate a game because that really messes up with the audience experience. Chess is a beautiful game, but it's not necessarily the most spectator friendly because there's just a lot going on. It should also be easy to tell who's winning. And now this can be done in a lot of different ways. It can be done with field design, where you can see the balls that have been scored or the scoring objects. Like the scale in 2018 is a great example that you could tell who was winning because this field actually changed states. But you can also do real-time scoring and scoreboards. But real-time scoring is complicated and costs money, which will tie into another piece of criteria. As you can see, there's a lot of interconnectedness to this. So your game needs to appeal to your target market. You've got it. All these criteria, you have to view them through the lens of your target market. But who is your target market? You need to define this. It's your game, In FRC, high school age students seem like the easy answer, but maybe there's more markets that the game design committee works with. Is the game exciting for mentors to be involved in because they're a critical part of our program? Is it exciting for sponsors? Do they want to continue their involvement in FIRST when they see these games? The media, like, is it your goal to try and get these games on TV? That's things you need to think about. Whatever you choose, you need to make sure your game appeals to them. However, and it's one thing I challenge all our teams to do when you're working on the game design challenge: focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion when defining your target market. Don't just design a game that's going to be fun for your friends or people Think broader. Think about accessibility. Making sure that all groups, no matter how people are abled, can participate and enjoy the game. Think about groups that typically, you go to a FIRST event and you take a look at the audience and you kind of know what that is. How can we change that audience? How can we get more people who aren't traditionally excited about FIRST into it because of your game? That's a really, really important thing to think about. It all ties back to the excitement. So another one is engaging to the target market, because there's exciting and engagement. Excitement mostly means like, wow, am I saying wow about this game? Engaging means, am I going to continue participating? And so those two are a little bit distinctly defined, but we can go to that slide. The aesthetics and imagery. Your game needs to look good. It needs to be visually striking and easy to see. So this ties directly to appealing to your target market. And let's just go very basic here. Does it look cool? Can you picture it in a magazine or on TV? Could you see this, does it resemble something you would see at Disney World? Or does it resemble something you would see, at a Raptors game? Or does it look cringy? Would your target market be embarrassed to show it to their friends? Or would people just kind of look at it and go, what is going on? So you want to make things pop visually. I think FIRST does a great job at this. Bright colors, excitement, energy, but it also needs to be easy to see. So you have to consider sight lines, because if your game's going to be exciting to an audience, people need to see what is happening on the field. So you have to be aware of obstructions. And this is another part about your target audience. Who is your primary audience? Is it the people in the stands at the event, or is it the people on the webcast? Because those are two very different constraints. Typically, FRC games are designed with the people in the audience in-house audience in mind, not as much on the webcast, but these are things you can think about. And what's cool about the game design challenge is that FIRST has left it very open-ended. There's 4 pages of supplemental material. You could do a study on, here's how we would set up the cameras for our game to maximize webcast audience to engage people on Twitch. Might be something you're passionate about. I know there's a lot of people who are very passionate about camera angles in the FIRST community. It's a little bit bizarre, but if you want to talk about that, you can talk about that. But aesthetics and imagery, important criteria. Affordability and accessibility. This is important. The game needs to be financially realistic. You can't, you could come up with a game piece that seems super, super awesome, but they cost $150 each. And that's not going to be accessible. And it's not necessarily financially realistic. Your field needs to be affordable to build. Designing a game for this challenge is one thing, but designing a game for production for over 10,000 teams are two very different tasks. I don't want to go into all the production stuff that I used to have to deal with when doing Vex games, because it's a little bit beyond the scope of this, but you should be thinking about some of this. The FRC Game Design Committee does a great job of designing games where they want the field objects to be able to fit in a classroom, so that the ceiling, that you could practice with normal classroom height ceilings. These are things that you might not always think about, but are important constraints. I remember in 2008, the giant balls that they used in 2008 were 40 inches wide. And once you pumped them up, you couldn't get them out of a room. It was actually kind of hilarious. Things to think about. If we go back just for a second, sorry, Paul. The build experience of the robot also should not be cost prohibitive. So you should not be able to pay your way to success. And this is something you need to think about. You really want to avoid spending arms races. Now, you could do this with a rule, but every rule that's ever happened in FRC has not stopped arms races from happening. But generally, you want the game to be able to be accessible to teams, that they don't have to buy a special custom part somewhere, or that there's one special expensive custom part that gives teams a huge advantage. So you need to think about these things. There's a lot of things you need to think about. Next slide. Okay, so now we've talked about different criteria, and it's kind of been broken down that there's 3 different experiences we want to talk about. There's the build experience, the competitor's experience, and the spectator experience. So from the build experience, we've already talked about the criteria: exciting and engaging. What does that look like? What does an exciting build season mean? And what I found is teams like to have options, and teams need to have options. So they are forced to do some analysis and make choices and trade-offs between different types of robots and subsystems. If you have a game where it's very obvious that there's only one path to pursue, it's not as exciting because everyone knows they're doing the same thing. At that point, and there's some sports, like think about any of the sports we play, like basketball. Well, there's only one type of robot. It's a human, with 2 arms and 2 legs. Like that's the person who plays the game. But with robots, there's it's nice when there's lots of different robots and lots of different things going out there. So you want to design a game that allows for a diversity of robots. And how do you get to that point? Well, it's about providing teams with different tasks to do. However, if you provide too many tasks, you get to the point where it becomes very hard to do them all. And if someone can do them all, or a group of teams can do them all, that's when you have very, very dominant robots. So you want to force it so it's such that there's enough tasks that teams can't necessarily do everything, but there's intelligent mappings. Like I can do 2, 3, 5, or I can do 1, 4, 6 and be successful. The ultimate game for this was Ultimate Ascent 2013, the Frisbee shooting game, where there were so many different paradigms of robots that could be successful. Along with the build experience, teams must be able to iterate and optimize during the season. It's not like the game should be so simple that not necessarily simple, but have a ceiling where they've hit that point. There's no point in trying to get better other than just driver practice. You want teams to have goals so they can continue adding to their robot, changing their robot, go to their first district event, see some things and be like, oh, I know what we want to do now. Because that's like the cool excitement of first. It's like, oh, we can do so much more. You want people to have that wow moment. A very, very important point. Teams of varying levels must be able to be successful while still being challenged. You have to have tasks at a variety of skill and resource levels. Like our first community includes a lot of different teams, and some are rookies, some are veterans. Some have students who've been in this program for forever. Some have people who are brand new. Some have large facilities, lots of experience to draw upon. You want to make sure that everyone can play this game and accomplish something, more so than just putting the robot in the field, having to move to get 5 points in auto, and then just park and play defense. That's not rewarding, and it's not necessarily a rewarding field experience. You want to give everyone an attainable goal. I'm very big on the concept of goal setting, and we want teams, we want there to be some parts of the game where a team can say, hey, we're just going to focus on that, as opposed to them saying, oh, I guess we have to do this really hard thing that we probably can't do. Give teams reasonable goals, allow them to succeed, allow them to be awesome. And teams need to be fairly rewarded, where if a team puts a lot of effort into something and they made the right strategic decision to put a lot of effort into something, they should get rewarded on that. So if hard tasks should get points, and tasks that take a lot of time should get points, and tasks that take less time should get less points, because our team, most of our teams, not all, but most of our teams are playing hardcore to win. And this is actually a really interesting point. It's not even in the slides, but some of our teams they care about maximizing their build experience. So they want to build a fun robot regardless of whether it's winning or not. While other teams are focused on the competition experience, where they want to build a robot that will do well in competition. And so you want to make sure that teams who have done something that is hard are rewarded with points. And that if you don't, the teams are going to see, oh, wait, I can just do this easy stuff. And they're going to skip the hard stuff that you want to see happen. And that's going to affect how your game plays. You should definitely have an image of what your game should look like. And we'll talk about that in a few slides from now. So next slide. Okay, the competitor's experience. Teams must be rewarded based on robot skill and strategy. So when you get to a competition, you want teams who've got good robots to be rewarded. You want teams who have good strategy to be rewarded. However, good strategy should not completely outweigh robot skill. There's got to be a balance here. If a team has a robot that can do all sorts of cool stuff, they should be rewarded, and not just because someone's a little bit savvier in strategy. Shouldn't be able to shut them down completely. Challenging tasks should be highly rewarded to incentivize completion to keep the game balanced. And like we said, it's going to be a blend of strategy and skill. Teams need to be forced to make strategic decisions during the match. Matches shouldn't be repetitive. This was a little bit of a complaint with Recycle Rush, where it was the same pattern every time. It's like grab the cans, build stacks. That was the game. And so like some people can watch that a lot. Like some people like the long jump, while others want a dynamic game, like volleyball, where different things are happening and the game can flow in so many different ways. Also, if you see my strategic design presentations, you know how much time I focus on trying to find chokeholds. If you're designing a game, like your number one task, well, no, not your number one task. Your number one task is to make sure your game is not broken. But your number two task is to make sure your game doesn't have a chokehold, because a chokehold will break your game, which was task number one. So you want to make sure that there is not a single task that a team can do or a single overwhelming strategy that would guarantee victory, because that just ruins everything. And that's on you as game designers. And the first game design committee is really, really good at this. The last time they had a true chokehold in their game was 2002, and they've never allowed it to happen since. And when you're designing your games, you need to be asking yourself, are there chokeholds? Feel bad moments are bad. You know, what does that mean? Well, we want our teams to feel good. So we want the game to be filled with positive reinforcement. You know, the 2015 game, I keep picking on Recycle Rush, and I really like this game. But a team has scored a stack, and they go to score their garbage can on top of their recycling bin on top of the stack, and they would knock over their own stack. And that's a feel bad moment that the team has done to themselves. And what was really awkward, because of the lack of head-to-head interaction, sometimes an audience who's just cheering for their own team is kind of cheering for feel bad moments for the other alliance, which isn't necessarily a great experience. So you want to avoid feel bad moments. You want to reward teams for doing things that are cool and enable teams to do things that are cool. Next slide. The spectator experience. So your game must be exciting to watch, provided the robots are moderately capable. Now, understand, no matter what game you design, how great it is, if the robots can't do anything, it's not going to be exciting. You know, even if you gave them low-level tasks, they can't do that. And so that's okay, but you need to understand that the game must be exciting if teams can at least do your low-level task. And we know the higher-level tasks, and I pretty much say that no matter what FRC game we get, it's going to be exciting on Einstein when you have the best robots in the world. You know, when you have 254 and 2056 out there, it's going to be exciting because they do things at such an insanely high level. I shouldn't use insane in that context. I apologize. Do that such things at an exciting high level. But we want games to be exciting, you know, at the first district event of the season where teams are still unbagging and figuring things out. So it's important that tasks are attainable for teams at all levels. It's, you know, and we see that that's why so many games have low goals. And, you know, in 2019 in Destination Deep Space panels, there were so many panels at the low levels, giving teams things that they can do. There was, you know, it's not just, for years, it was like you could only pick up game objects from the ground. But now allowing game objects to be human loaded ensures that teams can get game objects without having an intake, which makes things easier. It should be easy to tell who's winning. We've talked about that, but it should be easy to follow. This is a big pet peeve of mine. And it's hard when you have 6 robots on the field. It is hard when you have 4 robots on the field. You want the audience to be able to focus on one area of the field. You think of any sport that we watch. You watch baseball, you follow the ball. You watch the pitcher-batter interaction, the ball gets hit to play, you follow the ball. You watch football, which has lots of stuff going on. Very few people are doing anything other than following the ball. Soccer, hockey, same sort of thing, you know. Like more experienced viewers, you know, in football, you're watching offensive line play, you're watching Jalen Ramsey, you know, jam someone off the line. But for the most part, there's one area to follow. Sometimes in robot games, you can feel like your head hurts because you're trying to watch 6 robots at the same time because they're all doing things. Or even in 2016, the Castle game, you were trying to watch both courtyards at the same time because the shooting was going into separate areas, and that was a little bit hard to watch. So it's nice to have scoring in a central area like that where all the attention is focused. That is just huge in terms of visibility. Robots need to be incentivized to do visually appealing tasks. So you want to make them do cool chat. By the way, moderators, start dumping some of these questions and comments that we're getting in chat into the show doc. I would really appreciate that. That would be really great. So when you have cool stuff in your game that you want to happen, the only way it's going to happen is if you incentivize teams to do it with points. You think about the game we had a few years ago, Steamworks. Gears were so incentivized in points, teams focused on that. And there weren't necessarily enough points to get teams excited about shooting. And even though that's a cool, awesome visual task, not a lot of teams did it. So you want to incentivize things the proper way. We're going to talk about scoring soon. Post matches and last second finishes are fun. So number one, you don't want matches to end early. You don't want a team to be able to dominate just because of auto. 2008, there was one team that infamously won a lot of their matches in the autonomous period. And so you don't necessarily want that to be a thing. But you also want to make sure that the end of the match is utilized. So you could have an end game for the end of the match. That's an easy way. Like, hey, just add a hanging bar. That was our joke on our old game design committee. It's like, this is a great game, but what about end game? I don't know, just add a hanging bar. And literally we did that a few times. That just keeps falling on me, you know. But the other thing you can do is instead of having a physical defined end game, you could have the game be such a back and forth game that the last part of the game was going to be spent scoring. And so last second scoring runs, or like a bonus object that can only be scored in the last 30 seconds. The folks who run the Stanley Cup do a great job of this with their Stanley Cup special objects and stuff. So back and forth is a really cool dynamic that happens at the end of the match. But you want teams at the last second trying to hit that last second shot. Like, what is more exciting than Kawhi Leonard taking the ball and hitting that last second shot? Nothing. And so you want to have those experiences. Also, robots should not all look the same. And this is hard. We'll talk about this more later. Next slide. Okay. So we've gone over this the criteria, and there is a lot of stuff we've talked about. So now what should it look like based on this criteria? Well, number one, your rewards, the points for all your tasks must be effort balanced. Coming back to this. This is a big one. And if you're going to take one thing away from this presentation, this is a really good one. Tasks should look hard, but are easy. What does this mean? That means the audience is going to be impressed, but they are still attainable for teams. The opposite of this is tasks that look easy, but are hard. Let me give you an example. You know, round ball versus a cube. ball versus cube. Actually, not even cube. Let's say rectangular prism. Something that doesn't have a ball. Round ball has pure symmetry in every single direction. You can pick it up in every single direction. But anything like a tote, which has to be oriented to a certain direction, is that much harder to pick up. But guess what? The audience can't tell the difference. They're just like, oh, picking up objects. Balls enable teams to be good. Other objects, while giving a more of a design challenge, make it harder for teams to be good. And what you need to remember is robot building is already really hard. You don't need to introduce extra challenges, especially at low levels. So you want to enable teams to be successful. And you want to make sure that tasks look difficult but are easy. The classic example of this one is why like cylinders are not a good game. Because you just look at a cylinder, it's like, oh yeah, you pick it up and then you turn your wrist and you put it in somewhere. And that's not so great for a robot because having an intake on a wrist mechanism is a huge extra degree of freedom that makes things a lot harder. And so you want to avoid that sort of stuff. So you want to enable your teams to be successful. So as much as you want to give them challenges, you want to throw too much at them. Another great example is why flat field games are awesome, because then you don't have to worry. You just do your drivetrain and you don't have to think too much about it. When you go and you have extra obstacles, you better have a really, really good reason for them. And I'll talk about this a little bit more as we go on, because you want to enable teams to drive around, because it's not going to be fun if half your field is a ramp and then rookie teams, they're like, they can't figure it out. You want your base level teams at least to be able to drive around the entire field, or at least 90% of it, unless you have like a special end game sort of section. So you'd want to, that's another point. Look hard, but is easy. Yeah,
apologies for interrupting. So we're getting some questions from chat.
Sure.
So I thought you'd just start following up. So one of the questions is, what are the pros and cons of descoring tasks and negators in a game?
So, I like descoring tasks as long as there's a limit to it. So, typically in any sort of point-based game, the amount of points you score for yourself have equivalent value to the amount of points you deny for your opponent. So descoring, if you can reduce the opponent's score, it's as valuable as scoring, depending on your ranking and the such. You absolutely need to make sure that descoring is more difficult than scoring, at least the same difficulty, but probably more difficult, because you want to encourage scoring to happen. If descoring is so easy, then teams aren't necessarily going to score. They're going to wait to descore. And so that's like a messy option. My trick for including descoring in games was to limit the amount of descoring that can happen. And you can do this in one of two ways. You can do with physical design of your scoring locations where people can't reach far in, or you can do it with rules. One rule that I like to use was you could only descore objects that were above the top of the goal. So you have a goal which could overflow a bit, and then you could knock the ones off the top, but you couldn't reach it. And that was a way to minimize the effect of descoring. But we'll come back to more questions in a bit. So, back to what should the game look like? A variety of successful robots. So obviously, if you give lots of different tasks, that's going to encourage a diversity of robots in theory. And you have to make sure that there's multiple strategies that can be successful. This is probably my biggest failing as a game designer at Vex, where every game was just blown up by design convergence. There were a lot of different reasons for that in the Vex community, where people got really focused on the early meta, and people just were very focused on kind of emulating what they'd already seen on YouTube and having that full 12-month build season, similar to FTC. FTC struggles with this as well, but you should think about this. How are you going to encourage robots to be, because when you're watching a match, it's kind of not fun when all the robots look exactly the same. So seeing different style robots is really, really cool. Your game should have action spread across the field. However, the audience, you want robots going all over the place, but the audience should know where to focus. You want to be able to draw their attention to something striking and, visually striking.
So this actually relates to one of the other questions in the chat. So when we're talking about something like visually attracting and aesthetic, one of the questions here says, what are your thoughts on the scientific complexity for scoring tasks, such as the frisbees in one of the previous games?
That's really funny that question's there, because I'm going to talk specifically about frisbees and ultimate ascent in terms of scoring. But Yes, that's one of the balance points, and there's a specific slide on this. We're going to come to that one, so let's hold on that one, Ishan. Okay, so now we kind of gone over what the criteria are for a game, and we've kind of gone over what a game should look like. How do you get there? What is the process? And there's lots of different ways to start. And I know teams are struggling with this already with the game design challenge. It's like, where do I start? What do I do? You kind of know with a robot, but this, so here's the process. And trust me, there's lots of different ways you can do this. I'm not trying to say this is the only way to design a game. But this has worked for me. It worked for Brian Culver, and we worked on this together to come up with this sort of process. So number one, you got to identify your criteria. And the previous slides are like a starting point for what your criteria could be, but you have to set your own criteria as well. You're defining your target audience, all that sort of stuff. Now you need to identify any other constraints you have. For example, this year in the game design challenge, in section 3.3 of the manual, they list some constraints. For example, it has to be I think they defined it as a 3 versus 3 game. I think they defined an approximate field size, approximate rules and stuff. So those are other constraints you had. At Bex, I had all sorts of constraints in terms of things could only cost a certain number, and things could only, you have to work within these constraints. So now you know what your constraints are, and you start brainstorming. This is where your diverse team really, really matters. I like to break brainstorming down to 3 different areas. So number one, potential game dynamics. A game dynamic is something like a pick and place game. The Power Up was a pick and place game. You pick up cubes and you place them somewhere. You're not shooting them, you're placing them. A shooting plus cycling game, a divided field game, a goal ownership game. Lots of different options for game dynamics. But a game dynamic is kind of like, what's the identity of a portion of this game? Potential game objects. This is a good starting point as well. I prefer to start, my games around dynamics, but just brainstorm a whole bunch of different game objects that are realistic for the size and scope of your teams. And game elements, which are field elements, the things on the field, like a scale, like a goal, like a hanging pole, like a trapeze. There's a very famous game designer who was intent on getting a trapeze into a game. So now you have all these lists. You need to pick one item that you love, set it as a constraint, say, okay, this is going to be part of the game, and start building a game around it. And then you add additional items from the brainstorm list as you build, but don't add too many. The next slide. You start introducing basic rules as constraints as well. Like you could say, okay, we're going to have this game dynamic, but say you've already got a game dynamic and you've got a game piece in there. You might want to introduce, oh, well, we know that we have to keep the cost of this down. We can't have 8,000 of these on the field. So maybe we want to have a possession rule. These are the types of things, but regardless, every time you would add something to the game, you need to ask, what is the purpose of this addition? What is it incentivizing? What is it disincentivizing? And is it necessary? The best games are simplistic and pure, where they don't have too much crazy stuff going on. Next slide. So each time you add a constraint, element, object, dynamic, rule, you have to consider the impact one at a time. Don't add 4 things and then be like, oh, I don't know, I don't like this anymore. You need to figure out why you added these things. And each time you add something, write down why you added it. So when the decision comes back, why did we add this? You know why, because it's so easy to lose track. You have to evaluate each constraint against your criteria. Does it hurt or does it help? Spoiler alert, if it doesn't help your game, don't add it. Keep things simple. Simple games are easier and more enjoyable for everyone involved. You don't want to end up with a 150-page game manual. Simple is better. Simple, simple, simple. You can still have complex strategies in robot designs with a simple game. For example, tic-tac-toe is very simple for humans, but it's complicated in a good way for live action robots. So game within a game is a dynamic that's talked about a lot, where it's like the robots are playing one game, but there's like a little game that happens within it. Like the scale was a game within a game, Very obvious to see what's going on, very easy. But like tic-tac-toe is probably as complicated as you want for a game within a game. I know a lot of our audience plays video games, and modern video games are very, very intense. There's a lot of stuff going on, and trying to distill that into an FRC game would be very, very difficult. So if you want to base things around like one of those video games you love, pick and choose carefully. Next slide. Okay, I know I'm running out of time, but I think I can get through this. The game design process So now you've outlined your game. Dynamics, you've got some game objects, some field elements, some basic rules. You now have a game skeleton. You need to define this all in writing. An adequate field layout. Now, for every game that I've been a part of, I drew every single field layout in PowerPoint. I call it PCAD, PowerPoint CAD. And once you have like a sketch and an outline, you just need to put some meat on the bones. So let's take a look at what a game skeleton looks like. This is a game skeleton from the VRC game Skyrise. This is the actual skeleton that was used in the game design process. The field kind of outlines where things are, and you see, I just got the list of things, constraints that we added. Blue and red goals can be expanded. Cube score on goals. Goal sections are available in an autoloader. This is like the core of your game. And this is what I would take and translate into a game manual. But this skeleton is just based on your simple sorts of additions. Next slide. Another game example that's from VexIQ Skyrise. Highrise. Next slide. Okay, scoring analysis. I wanted to leave more time for this, but I didn't. This could be an entire presentation. And folks, and for our producers, I think I'm going to run over time by 5 minutes here. I apologize in advance. Choosing bad scoring values can break an entire game. However, you don't need to be perfect. You just can't be awful. Scoring tends to balance itself out. There's been lots of games where things weren't super in line, and it was fine. So you just need to get it close. Balance is the key. So points for tasks should be balanced with effort. And I've got a whole slide coming on this, but effort for design to build for, effort to complete tasks and matches. Points for any one single task should not be overwhelming. So here's a case study. And we had the question in chat about this. In the FRC game 2013 Ultimate Ascent, you could get 30 points for climbing, while scoring a single frisbee in the high goal was worth only 3 points. So a 30-point climb was 10 times more than the value of a frisbee. Even more so, if you got to the top, you could score. There was a special goal only at the top of the climbing bar. This was like a very, very difficult challenge. And you got 5 points for every frisbee up there. So you could do a 50-point climb, which was equivalent to 17 frisbees. And there was a possession limit of 4 that year. So like 4 cycles. This is massive. And teams still didn't do it. Very few teams did because it was that hard. And so why did this happen? And some people said, oh, they should have put more points in that climb. But my argument is, if they put more points in that climb, it would have made the game, people could have been able to chokehold it, and people could have been able to overwhelm, and they would have gone to climb super, super early, and it would not have been good. So it's sometimes you can't put enough points at something to make it worth the value. And that tells you that your task is probably a little bit too hard. Now, how do you decide if a task is too hard? That's experience. That's knowing what robots can typically do. So when you're designing your game, you have to remember that most teams, rehearsed robotics competition is incredibly, incredibly challenging. And most teams can't necessarily do all these sorts of things. So really, really focus on this sort of stuff. The other reason why that climb was not as incentivized, because even though it was 30 points, you could get 10 points for doing a low climb. And so it was only kind of worth 20 points. And the low climb was so easy. It really changed things. So your tasks have to be balanced to effort, but they have to be balanced to the other tasks in the game. Super, super important point. So where to start? I like building out match scenarios. So you say for a match, we've got our skeleton. We don't know what the point values are yet, but we know there's different tasks that earn points. You say like red has 12 high goals, 4 low goals, and 2 low end games. Blue has 8 high goals, 8 low goals, and 1 high end game. Who should win? Don't put any point values in your head. Just based on the game that you designed, who should win in this scenario is what you have to ask yourself. And you lay out lots of these scenarios, and you ask your whole team to look through these, and you say red or blue, red or blue. And then you lay out multiple scoring options for all of these. And then you see which option agrees with the consensus opinion the most, and that leads you to like an idea of where you should be. So you want to balance. So that's a really, really cool way of doing it. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more because I have an idea that I haven't really sold to anyone yet. You want to balance similar tasks first. This is the easy part. like balancing a, high goal and a low goal, because those are really comparable. It's apples to apples. Balancing different tasks, shooting versus climbing, that's apples to oranges. That's challenging. That's really, really hard. Next slide. So consider the time to accomplish each task as a guide in score value balancing. Like, how much time do I need to spend in the match to do this? Think about cycles per match in past games with similar constraints. The Blue Alliance is a goldmine for this. Look at past games, look at past scoring averages, and look at success rates, especially for endgame they have this all. The Caleb Spikes database with the component OPRs, hugely valuable. You want to take a look at what has happened in the past and don't make the same mistakes, but more so, repeat the successes. The FRC Game Design Committee is really, really good at what they do. So emulate the successes they've had. Don't copy their games. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying look at their process and see what has worked for them. Remember the 2-4-8 rule of cycles. I've talked about this a lot, but basically the best teams in the world, no matter what game you throw at them, end up doing about 8 cycles in their best undefended matches. An average team at a NASDAQ district event is usually doing like 2 cycles. And so keep that in mind. It sounds super low, but it's true. FRC shooting percentages tend to hover at 66% per game. That has been borne out as long as there's been shooting games. So linear algebra can be your friend, but remember, you don't need to be perfect. It's not awful. However, something you could try. And I've never actually done this, but I should have. So, when you calculate OPR, you take, Alliance A plus Alliance B plus Alliance C and their score, and then, you like solve this giant matrix. But what if you did some linear programming where you said that, okay, game option, so let's do AX plus BY plus CZ, where X, Y, and Z are what you're trying to solve for, whatever your scoring options are going to be, and A, B, and C are actual scoring situations, a scoring scenario. And remember what we talked about earlier, where you say, did red, blue win or blue win? So you set up an equation, AX plus BY plus CZ is greater than or less than, you got to figure out which sign to put in there, versus dx ey fz. So one equation. And you just generate a bunch of equations for the different scenarios you have, and you do some linear programming. It's an overconstrained system, but then that overconstrained system, when you graph it in the plane, is going to have an area of overlap. And within that area of overlap is your X, Y, and Z, your scoring values. And then you just tune those so they're nice numbers as opposed to, 2 root 2 over 7. Don't ever do a scoring value of 2 root 2 over 7. Actually, I would like it, but no one else would. But so I know that's really a little bit complex, but I figured some people out there would be interested in what that is. And yeah, MATLAB will solve that, R will solve that, Maple will solve that. It's cool. You could try it out. Automate it. That could be part of your game design submission. You tell the judges that you came up with an automated scoring system. But if you do that, please let me know about it, because I want to see it. I want to see if this actually works. I don't know if it's going to work, but hey. People are obsessed with round numbers. People like scoring values to be like 5s or 10s, or I'm not too concerned about that. But I've been yelled at a lot for like, you can't have 7 as a scoring value. People will never be able to figure it out. I'm like, why are we treating people like they're dumb? Like, I don't know. But also don't do score inflation. Like, set your base value at like 1 or at 2. Like, don't say, oh, our point values are 10, 50, and 100. That's the same as 1, 5, and 10. Next slide. So scoring analysis, what exactly are we balancing? Here are the 4 things you need to be thinking about when you're balancing your scores. You want to balance design and build effort with points. So how much work are teams putting in to create this mechanism? They should be rewarded for it. Time spent during the match with points. Like how long does this task take to do by a high-level team, mid-level team, low-level team? Balancing how much you want this task to happen with points. Sometimes your first game dynamic might have been shooting game. But if you don't give enough points to shooting, it's not going to happen. Also, balancing each task with each other to make sure everything is scaled properly. A lot of different constraints. It's really cool. Okay. You balance your scores. You've got an outline. You've got a game that's all kind of sketched together. What do you do now? Well, you got to start asking questions. And I put together some lists of questions you should ask. I think you should ask every single one of these questions. But these questions will make sure that you haven't overlooked anything. And it's as basic as a competitor, when I first see this game, am I excited? What are the primary goals for teams? Are there feel bad moments? These are the types of questions that we've talked about a lot of these comments throughout the presentation, but these are questions you want to ask to make sure you haven't missed anything. So these are the general ones. Next slide. Strategy questions. How easily can I use robot designs from previous games? Because that's something you don't necessarily want. You want teams to be forced to innovate, but you want teams to rely on past games a little bit. Is there disagreement on what the best strategy is? If there is, that's a good thing, because that means there's multiple strategies, Is there incentive for a robot to sit in one place? Not a good thing. We want robots doing stuff. We don't want to over-incentivize defense. Chokehold strategies. Is defense an option? Defense is cool in games, but you never want defense to be overwhelming. Teams like to build robots to score. You want to reward them, so you don't want defense to overwhelm all their cool offense. Next slide. And then there's some rules questions you can ask. Are there protected zones? What's incentivizing teams on the field? Are robots moving around? What defines the zones? If you're going to write rules, get this one right. Is it touching, breaking the plane, or is it fully contained? And please try and be consistent across the game, because that's easier for referees, easier for spectators. Next slide. Robot design, lots of different things. What's the easiest way? How long will different actions take? Are there any design features that will require a lot of tuning? Is the best robot going to be able to do everything? Questions to ask. Next slide. About your field. Are there bottleneck spots on the field, where robots which break down traffic? Are there a lot of game objects? Are there too few game objects? Think about the Goldilocks rule. You want to kind of be somewhere in the middle. Where do things start the match? Are there certain areas where lots of penalties are going to happen? Because if there are, you want to fix that. Are field elements constructible by teams all across the globe? Is it affordable? A lot of people say, oh, why don't we just have game pieces where you can buy at Walmart? That's great for countries that have Walmart. Not so great for countries that don't. And Walmart's different from state to state, province to province, country to country. Next slide.
Karthik, just one quick question on that. So what if like a team designed their own part? How could you estimate the price of that part?
I think the number one thing is to either ask your own mentors or seek out advice from people in industries like that, where you can learn how things cost. We saw this with the STEMathon that we did, where some of our students were coming up with these really, really cool ideas, but they weren't sure on costing, and then some of the mentors stepped in to give them some advice. But I would ask around, because retail price is so different than cost to manufacture. It's an evil secret of this world. Like the things that you go at Walmart typically only cost 10% of that to actually build, sometimes even less. So, Fursuit is a nonprofit, and they typically sell their game pieces for as close to that cost as possible. So you got to do some research.
Yeah.
Logistics, more questions to ask. Is it easy to score? Is it easy to ref? These are all good things to ask. Next slide. Final thoughts, everyone. Don't be afraid to be creative. You're not designing a game for production, so you can take some risks here. You can have some fun. Throw some ideas out there. Have fun. Always remember equity, diversity, and inclusion with game design. Please don't design a game that's only going to appeal to a certain target market and exclude others. That's not what we do in First. Get lots of people involved. Simple, elegant games are amazing. And I could do a whole presentation on rule writing. It's a bit of an art form. I'm very proud of my ability to write rules, but always use a base set of definitions and build from there. Always state your intent, so teams don't assume teams know what you're thinking. Put it in writing. Put it in writing. And if you want to make sure something doesn't happen, make it illegal. Don't just assume teams aren't going to do it, or hope teams aren't going to do it, or shame them. Make it illegal. And of course, beware of loopholes, because this game is going to, these games are broken down by hundreds of thousands of students, and if there's a loophole, someone's going to find it. So it's your job as the game designers to try and eliminate as many loopholes as you can beforehand. We are running down on time. Ishan, are there any questions out of the chat that you really want to get to?
One of them is just, what was your favorite end game of any VEX or FRC event?
Well, the 2013 climb was so cool, but even though it didn't end up being balanced correctly, 1999 FRC Double Trouble, where you had to elevate your robot 8 feet up in the air, where you had to like basically have an elevator that would take all your game objects and hold them up in the air at the end game, which was a kind of cool, crazy challenges based on the defense rules that year. So there's a lot. Maybe a couple others, Ishan?
Yeah, for sure. So another one is, do you have any thoughts on RPs, especially whether the actions that would earn RPs in qual should earn extra points in eliminations?
I love RPs because I think from a strategic perspective, when ranking robots, having more criteria to rank them on other than win-loss is good. So teams can lose a match but still earn something towards that is really, really important. So I thought the ranking point, having 4 data points as opposed to 2 data points in terms of win points to rank teams has really improved our rankings overall. However, I do think it's important for our game to play the same way in qualifications as eliminations, or at least as similarly as they can. So that's why I like a point bonus, because the RPs obviously disappear in eliminations. So I like a point bonus to try and equalize it. But getting that point bonus right is really difficult. So it's another balancing challenge. And you already have a lot of balancing challenges. The more things you add in, the more things you can get wrong. And maybe one more question, Ishan.
Sure. So another question is, do you have any good rules of thumbs for what robots can do? So like how many cycles a top or really good robot should be able to do?
Yeah, the 842 rule that I talked about earlier is best robots in the world undefended typically are hitting 8 cycles per match if it is a full field kind of cycle game. And that's when I say 8 per match, they don't actually do an 8 per match. They could do 8 undefended typically. A high level team at the championship is typically doing 4 cycles with some level of defense. That's been seen through for years and years. It sounds low, but it's typically true if it's full field. If the cycles get a little bit shorter, it shortens a bit. But remember, the defining contributor to cycle time is not necessarily distance traveled. It's acquisition and release.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the last part of that question?
I think you addressed most of the parts.
Oh yeah, and then 2 for like, average-ish teams at an early season event. 2 cycles is like a nice number.
Yeah.
842 rule.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more, Ishan?
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. I can put one more. So what do you think about the recent change to have RPs not assigned points, which we saw in 2019 modified the gameplay strategies completing rockets versus scoring as many points as possible?
Yeah, we hit that with the previous question, Ishan. I do like the points being awarded. Now, sometimes you don't need those points awarded because the task is already incentivized enough. But if you take away the RP and suddenly teams feel like they don't need to do this task anymore, that means that there should be a point bonus. So it was whether the incentive is high enough.
Mm-hmm. I see, yeah.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. I know there's more questions. I will stay in the Twitch chat and try and answer as many of these as I can. This was really fun. This whole show was fun. Ishan, did you have a good time today?
Yeah, I had a great time. Yeah, and it was really unique meeting another Ishan. Actually, I don't think I've met another Ishan before.
Seriously, never met another Ishan? I know so many Karthiks. They're all like my cousins. It's really weird. Thanks to everyone who was on the show today. It was a really good time. This was a lot of fun. Hey teams, the game design challenge. If you were interested in this in the slightest, do it. It's fun. It's exciting. There's so much stuff. And I'll make this offer to any team out there watching. I'm not participating in the game design challenge this year, but if you want someone to bounce your game off of, to give you some comments and stuff, send it my way. I am happy to take a look and we can hop on a Zoom call, or we can just do it via email and I can give you some feedback. I'm probably just going to ask the questions that I had in the end of the presentation there, but we'll do that. It'll be fun, especially for our Ontario teams. Let's get together. All right, next week, cool show. We have the FLL Sports Showcase with the Waffles. We're going to have a discussion with Georgian College like we had with Mcmaster today, talking about their school and all the amazing things they have going on. And we're going to be talking about the Innovation Challenge with former global first place winners of the Global Innovation Challenge, the eBot Hydrators, Connor Bosey, who Ishan you know from the Youth Council. Him and some of his old teammates are going to be on the show talking about the Innovation Challenge, breaking it down. So thanks for everyone. Thanks for, I'm sorry we went over time. This was not ideal, but hopefully some people stayed on to watch, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.